Hello, everybody. Welcome to episode 34 of Titanic Talks. It is Friday, September 22nd, 2023. Welcome one, welcome all. Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, children of all ages, D-Generation X proudly brings to you the WWF Tag Team Champions of the World. Haven't thought about that or said it in, I don't know, since 1998. So that's fun. Why do we remember those things? I guess it's like a rhythmic thing. I was recently reading about maybe you've heard about this, the Vietnamese prisoner of war. And allegedly I think they nicknamed him the Stupid One, something like that. And upon release, he had memorized like 30 of the other prisoners of war's names by reciting it to Old MacDonald or some nursery rhyme like that. And hey, good way to remember things. I tend to remember things if I turn it into a song. You tend to remember those things. You find a rhythm and something memorable about it, and you can remember it forever, like the New Age Outlaws intro announcement. What do you call that? Grew up watching professional wrestling. Was a big fan. And for a long time, that was kind of the way I looked at. I've talked about this maybe a little bit before, but that was always in my projects. I would always kind of position things like, well, in professional wrestling, you have it's the oldest trope in the book, but I think more recently they consistently have been doing it in the WWE now. But professional wrestling, you have the hero and the heel, and a hero isn't necessarily. I guess the viewer doesn't fully comprehend that the hero is a hero until the heel is introduced. And so a superhero or some, larger than life figure is not going to be as interesting until they are put in a position from a storytelling perspective where they need to be the hero and save the day, and maybe they're in danger. And that was a bit of the genesis of the persona of Titanic Sinclair. Not out of the jump. When I first started doing it, the idea was, well, people are more inclined to hate click things. And I think that's gotten a lot worse, actually. That's why society is in shambles, at least online. People talk all the time, oh my God, the sky is falling. It's like, yeah, kind of, but maybe it's that whole thing, like maybe we just see it all the time, right? I heard about this poor child in Arkansas who unfortunately, it struck a nerve with me because they're 16 months old, my son's 16 months old, and they were at a splash pad. We've talked about splash pads here. My son loves them more than anything. And this baby got a brain-eating amoeba from a splash pad and unfortunately passed away. Don't like even thinking about that stuff, but hey, it happens. And I got to talking with my significant other, and obviously, I'm doing everything I can to not be a helicopter parent, but also dad, you want to protect your offspring. And she had a very good point. She's like, well, that's probably been happening a lot. We just see it more because the internet and, 15, 20 years ago, would you have really heard the local news from Little Rock, Arkansas, right? What does this have to do with the New Age Outlaws in WWF in 1998? Nothing. It's just the way your homeboy's brain works. Tangent one way, tangent the other way. Hopefully we circle it back. And the way that we're going to do that is to bring it back to the hero and the heel. When I first started realizing, I don't even know if meme really was a word when I really first started doing video stuff, at least on the internet. I've been doing video stuff my whole life, literally. Might be fun maybe around the holidays to. We always had a camera around the house. My father was he worked for the local news as a reporter. So we always had cameras, and we would make silly little movies. Me basically dancing to Michael Jackson and things of that nature. It'd be funny to kind of show some of that stuff maybe around the holidays, because a lot of it was holiday themed, I guess. And there's another tangent. Here we are, and it's only been 5.5 minutes maybe. What are you going to do, right? The coffee's kicking in. I don't usually do these super early. It's pretty early still, so got a decent amount of energy, and we're kicking it off, talking about professional wrestling and prisoners of war. So that's fun. But the switch kind of happened because it was when YouTube started. That really was kind of the Pandora's box opening, and to basically anyone being able to, you being able to tube. Kind of nailed it on the name, didn't they? Billionaires. And first big project that took off, to me, it was always more of a band thing, foreshadowing into, hey, maybe the content's more interesting than the music. Depends on who you ask. But once that ended, I took, it was like 1.5 years, maybe 2 years almost, of restructuring it. The thing I had always done. It started with started as a kid, and then as I learned more about cameras and lights and cinema, I suppose, it was my buddies and I who made so many videos. Be funny to pull some of those up too at some point. Which crazily enough, one of my good friends, who the first, I guess, real project I ever had in high school, my friend Paul from that project, it was the four of us, just, stupid high school, boys in high school making videos, you can imagine. He apparently has been casted as the lead in the new Quentin Tarantino movie, Paul Walter Hauser. Amazing. My guy, you did it. We all knew you would. We all knew. And there, I don't think, is a more deserving person, probably in the world. I was going to say Hollywood, but in the world, because I've known him almost my whole life, and it's bizarre. Some people just have star power. I've been lucky to be around a handful of them, and he was the first for sure. If you're an OG fan, you'll remember him. Speaking of wrestling, you'll remember him from a very old computer show that I did with him, where I thought it would be funny to have him brushing his teeth and playing with his collection of professional wrestling figures. Strange how life is like that, huh? Your friend you grew up with suddenly is going to be in the new Quentin Tarantino movie. Huh? But I like to surround myself with people who have that thing. I used to think maybe I had that thing. I don't think I have it. You always hear people say it in the movies. They have it. I don't think I have it, but I think I know how to spot it. And I think that's the difference between like a producer or a director, and the people with it. Rarely the people who have it also are, the talent, as they would say in the biz, but the actors, actresses, singers, performers. And it's weird because I finally, this would have been actually around the time when I was in my rediscovery, first band had broken up. And I was like, well, what are the things that work about what I do and what can I add to it? This brings it back to wrestling. That's when I had the revelation of, oh, I should introduce more of like, you know, either the hero and the heel or the anti-hero. And, you know, it's funny, yeah, like all of the criticism that comes with that, which I understand. People don't understand. No one wants to see how the sausage is made, right? And we didn't have any money when we started doing all of the videos that went really, really viral. And it was, we were using mannequins and my basil plant, you know, and a prop skeleton. Like those were the characters. Like it, I always kind of lean into, I do this with music production too. It's like, I like leaning into like, well, it's the Jack White philosophy of 3, you know, like, well, let your limitations be your strength. And it was like, well, what objects do I have that I can incorporate and make it seem interesting? It really was what it was. I didn't have any money. I was so broke. We both were very, very broke. And then weren't. It's weird how that works. But that was, you know, people ask all the time, and I still get it all the time. You know, what's the secret sauce? You know, how do I make my videos viral and this and that? And I attribute a big, I've had time to think about this, right? I attribute a lot of it to the almost Shakespearean themes. I mean, look, we all have hopes and dreams and fears and desires and tragedy and all of that. And I think the more of that you can kind of work into something, even if it's something as simple as like a YouTube video in front of a white backdrop, right? And so I was using the limitation like that. That's always been my canvas, which is so funny when we won't even go there for legal reasons. So funny when people try to claim that was their idea. What are you going to do? Look, hey, if you were there, I can understand. Look, hey, I've been in really big sessions before, and I was just there. Big songs, really big songs. Doesn't mean I wrote it. And I would never in a million years be the guy who's like, oh, actually, that wouldn't have happened if I wasn't in the room. It's like, come on, man. But as they say in songwriting, say a word, get a third. Fun stuff. Rambling. But that's kind of the wrestling thing, if that makes any sense to you whatsoever. Hopefully that didn't come across too schizophrenic. It's weird. I can't really like go into exact specifics about things, but I think if you're watching this show, you have an understanding of a better understanding of let's say all the people who watched when what do they say what do they always say, the something truth, the dark truth about whatever. And it's like, hey, you're just a kid in Minnesota. I try not to watch those things, but at a certain point, it's like how much of this are they getting right? And usually it's about 5%. And these people think that they're like investigative journalists and whatnot. And no, you're just you went on Reddit. And hey, if someone screenshots a notes app and puts it on Instagram, it has to be real. And if you're like me, it's like biggest mistake I ever made was people are going to see right through this. Like, really? No one's going to believe this. They do. But hey, you live and you learn, right? When you're paying hundreds of thousands of dollars for attorneys, and basically you're paying them just to say, hey, shut up and go away for a while. that influences you because you're like, well, I'm spending six figures. They must know what's going on. And hey, maybe they were right. Man, they're really going after Russell Brand. Had a couple people ask me to comment on that. I really some pretty serious allegations there. So it's like, if it's real, go to court, have a jury of your peers look at all of the evidence. We've heard pretty much nothing we've heard from one side of anonymous people, stories from 20 years ago, 10, 15 years ago, something like that. And it's like, okay. But I've been through enough of this kind of stuff where, people come at you. You gotta put yourself in that seat. Someone says, we'll make it real personal. So to the viewer, someone that you were in a relationship with, a romantic relationship with for years, and it ends. It's never. Do you know one person where it was just a clean break and they're friends forever? But imagine you're in that situation, then suddenly, years later, they're like, oh, by the way, they did like terrible things. And you're sitting there and you're like, well, yeah, like we were both definitely not cool to each other, but nowhere near what you're saying. And, oh, hey, look, here's a device with irrefutable, you just click the button, put it online, and everyone goes, oh, yeah, that's malarkey. But then you have an entire team of people where, managers and a crisis team and attorneys, you're paying all of them. And pretty much everyone's just like, oh, don't say anything. Don't say anything. And you're like, oh, yeah, but if you don't say anything, the entire internet is saying that's an admission of guilt. And like, no. And it's like, yeah, but this huge magazine's asking for a comment. And I can just say, how, like, my side, at least for once, and here's all of I've got, you go through something like that and you've got your folders of stuff, which it's hilarious because, I still get comments from people and like, you did this and you did that. And like the first thing I always think is like, all of my friends have seen, well, they were there, but they've all seen the career ending videos and texts and all that, where, what are you going to do? So you just get right back up, you dust yourself off, and look, the world we live in now, they outlawed public shaming over 100 years ago for a reason, Like, did they stop making people read The Scarlet Letter in high school? I remember maybe like 11th grade, we had to read that. It's like, that's what we're living in, now. It's like, and it's crazy because I guess I was pretty early into the whole, public shaming via the internet. And I don't blame my team or, legal counsel or anything like that. No one had been through it. That's why I hired one of the biggest attorneys in the world. Because I was like, well, all attorneys are just going to take your money. I guess I'll just pay the most expensive one. I know I'm getting gouged, so at least I don't have to question it. And I'm glad I did, honestly. And the reason that he brought on the whole thing was because he was intrigued. He was just like, I think there's going to be a lot more of this. And your boy was right. And who wins in all this stuff? Nobody but the attorneys. Hey, for some reason, you're an attorney and you're watching this, thanks for watching. And you're welcome for all the money. They just, as soon as, all this cancellation stuff started happening, it was just that you could see the dollar signs. And like, ooh, a whole new business model, baby. Let's go. But, I'm not trying to make light of any, of these like Russell Brand allegations. It's like, hey, yeah, that's terrible. People very close to me who I love more than anything have been through horrible, horrible, horrible things. And, it's there seems to be, as soon as the light turned green on being able to just destroy someone with the click of a button, whether it's real or not. And, it started off with all the crazy, crazy Hollywood stuff with the producers and stuff that pretty much everyone in Hollywood already knew. It's basically, I don't want to get myself Epsteined here. It's a ring. And not the Fellowship of the Ring. And it seems that it's been going on for a long time. Is it going to change? Probably not. I don't think it's going to happen. Why? Because power corrupts. And look, where Lizzo got canceled. This person who's walking around about, it's acceptance and, equality and, I'm here for the underdog and this and that. And it turns out, and you kind of suck. I think that was kind of the, you live long enough. I know for a lot of the kiddos out there, it's hard to see, but I promise once you're older, I'm mid-30s here. I've seen the pendulum swing several times. Everyone, I see it with young people all the time, and it's kind of endearing at this point. I know those older than me are probably like, oh, wait till you get to your 40s, 50s, but 60s. But I was in Grant Park the night Barack Obama won, and there's two things I remember the most. Maybe I've mentioned this before, but one was this feeling of, because the whole campaign was hope and change. That was yes, we can. It was like, oh my God, and I didn't know anything. I guess I still don't about politics, but I was there. And it felt like there was this feeling, and everyone was talking about it. It's like, I wonder if this is what it was like when Kennedy was elected. We're going to change things and this and that. And then 8 years passed, and it's like, oh, drone strikes. What changed? Seems like it got worse. And then worse and worse and worse and worse and worse. But, I don't want to be doom and gloom because I'm of the type, I think it's our reality and our universe is kind of locked inside this big old brain of ours, and we decide. So people who are super wrapped up with either politics or, because a lot of people don't have, most people, I guess, at least in the United States, don't have any sort of religion. And I don't tend to get too big into that stuff because that's a personal kind of thing for me. But I can say that it's helped me tremendously. And it wasn't something until later in my life, or more recently, I guess, that, and maybe it's something that I needed to latch on to. But to me, the perspective was, well, I used to latch on to, we all want idols, and we all want to worship something. And I think I was worshiping this idea of just the self and motivating myself to be, to become an idol, or produce idols, and it was just the wrong way, I think, large brushstrokes of thinking about life. And to kind of, I guess, in the grand scheme, whether we like it or not, I think we do have this like strange idol worship thing, and it's, I think the hyper obsession with politics and celebrity, especially, has to do with the lack of faith and belief in whatever higher power it is that people believe in. And I think it's really easy, having been through, we toyed around with, to me, it was always a joke, and it was so silly, like the whole thing about being in a cult, like, but then just the whole thing is like always denying I am not in a cult. It was funny to me. And then it started to feel like, oh, wait a second, like, I think a lot of these people like actually are like want to be in one. And it's just a strange situation to be in, So, hey, those are my thoughts about Russell Brand, huh? I'm sure I'll get, slayed for that, but hey, guilty until proven innocent, and doesn't matter. They demonetize. He's deplatformed, and, here's the hot take. It's like, oh yeah, like incredibly charming, charismatic, handsome, rich, famous, successful, wildly talented. I've known a lot of those types. I've been around it a lot. Not that I have any more or less say here. I'm just saying, hey, been around it. It's like you see all these people on the forums and comments. It's like, yeah, you're in Kansas and you've never left. Shout out to Kansas, all good, but it's a different thing than you see crazy stuff at these Hollywood elite things, and your boy spent years wrapped up in all that, and people throw themselves at the idols. And I don't know, you see someone like that, and it's like, maybe they are just this demon, and any wrongdoing that they did, hey, convict them and let them do their time. But we don't know. We weren't there. And, I'm sure my perspective has been severely poisoned. It's like, how many other of these things are crying wolf? And the because it's some of them. And it just nauseates me because of all of the voices out there that are being overshadowed. They're the ones who are they're hurt the most. They're already hurt. It's, I don't know. Probably should have thought about this more before I talked about it, but hurt people hurt people. And sometimes those hurt people no, that wouldn't be fair. Sorry, I'm thinking out loud here. What's the phrase? When someone tells you you've hurt them, you don't get to decide that you didn't. So, hey, that's my take on it. And we don't know, which is why I don't engage in any way on that stuff. But a bunch of people wanted to know what I thought about the whole thing, and I guess I have some insight. So there's that. It's tricky stuff. When are they going to go after Jared Leto? Speaking of cults and charismatic, handsome, I met him once. I sang. I don't think I signed an NDA for this one. Oh. I sang backup vocals on one of his songs. He wrote for some big EDM song. It was weird. It was one of those things. He has this giant compound up at the top of like Laurel Canyon. It was like a military complex that he bought and turned it into. Every once in a while, I'll see like on TikTok or social media. I'll be mindlessly scrolling and it'll come up. And if you've seen any other stuff, it's whatever that rehearsal space is. It looks like an airplane hangar. I've been there, and worked with him. I literally sang on a song. It was me and a couple friends, and that's just those things happen. It was like gang vocals, the big oh that kind of thing. And it was just like I wasn't doing anything that day, and I was like, out of sheer curiosity, I was like, yeah, I'll go up and do it. And even back then, that was probably like 2017, maybe 2016. And even back then, I got caught real weird vibes. But that guy enters the room, and you're like, and I've never listened to 30 Seconds to Mars. Like, I had seen him in movies. What was he in? Requiem for a Dream. But just some of those people, it's that it thing. It's that star power. And I don't know, it's like certain people, like you look them in the eyes and you're like, you're a human? Like that, you're different. You were built different. I can hear my son. He's decided against napping. But he's one of those dudes. Absolutely beautiful human being. Holy smokes. But it seems like they've taken the cult thing out of control. I mean, the days are numbered. You can't do that. I did it as a gag on a tiny scale. But it's going to be some crazy documentary because, that's the thing is you get these people. Unfortunately, a lot of some close friends of mine have been through it and destroyed them. But, you get these beautiful people. Typically it's men. And, I like to think of myself as a bit of my mom says I'm a catch, right? But look, hey, a Hollywood 6, and maybe a South Texas 7, but you see these people and it's like, oh, you're a 10 in heaven. And it would just be crazy for me, like even just hanging around or being in proximity and around them. And it's like, just because you're with them, it's like supermodels are suddenly coming to talk to you and stuff. And it's like, what is this? And especially around kind of that time, I was a drunken mess on drugs. But so, I was more interested in seeing how much I could destroy myself. I was more interested in that than all of the beautiful people. Anyway, why am I talking about this? Just being around them. It's kind of a crazy thing because, I mean, and this is not in defense of megalomaniacs. Is that the word? But it's a different thing, and I'm sure everyone has been around people like that. Just to my estimation, it's like, well, it's kind of the ultimate form when it's like you're it's like they're like ultra famous too. And my whole thing was always just kind of just like looking around and just, I've always been the fly on the wall and like the sponge. I'm just like, I'm just going to soak all this up because I knew the entire time, like, this is not going to last. There's no way. And yeah, it's just, you see the way. That's why I can't say I blame the people who, look, it's again with the Russell Brand thing. It's like, and the dude, admittedly had a troubled past and, drugs, alcohol, and addiction, and certainly seems to be like the dude who liked hooking up with people. It's got to be in the thousands, right? Thousands. There's going to be a handful of them that are like, yeah, actually, now that I think about it, I'm remembering it differently now. And some people, I guess if you go to the media before you go to the police, that's one thing. I've been in my altercations before where I felt like, hey man, something's really not right here. Like fear as a full grown man, and I guess everyone's different, but my thought was I'm going right to the police. And if anything, like, here's a police report. And I never once thought about going public about any of those situations. And it's just crazy because how many of these? Seems like almost all of them. It's like, man, you went to TMZ before going to the police? But I think we all know where I stand on that. What else is going on? I almost didn't do a podcast today because been sick all week. Awesome. Pretty sure I got something in Nashville and probably COVID. But hey, who knows? Starts with that tickle in the back of your throat. You know what I mean? Pretty much the day, last week's episode had a weird little thing going on, and that turned into 4 or 5 days of literally praying to my creator for any sort of relief. Worst sore throat in my life ever. And it was the whole thing, shivering and then so hot and just the body aches and everything was horrible. But the Lord answered my prayer with liquid lidocaine and a steroid. Doctor said it wasn't COVID. Who knows? Probably the most miserable I've been in years, a very long time. But the worst part, I can deal with the pain and this and that. It's funny. I was shout out to Halls, who makes cough drops. They have little motivational quotes on them. I thought that was really funny. And one of them was like, "You've been through worse," and I'm like, shivering and like barely. It's when you're so sick and you can barely lift your hands. It was that, and I pull it open and I read the affirmation and it says, "You got this." You've been through worse. And I was like, yeah, thank you, Halls. But hey, here we are. Modern medicine's great. Lidocaine, hello. And hey, I can say I'm on steroids. Technically. That'll knock anything out as long as it's viral. But that was horrible. But the worst part of all, I was kind of quarantining myself from the family, and not being able to kiss my baby was the worst part. and that made me cry. But we're all good now, and feeling better. What do we? We're almost to questions here. In my notes, I've got. Are any of y'all bass players? Do you play bass? I'm a P guy. You can clip that. P bass, precision bass. I have an American Precision that I bought in Brooklyn, New York, while on tour. I think that was for the Am I a Girl tour. If you've seen it in clips or videos, it's the white one. Amazing. And that's been my main deal. Think I'm going to get a Mustang bass. Do you play a Mustang bass? I've played a bunch. I love them. I know I kind of found out about them probably listening to Air, and I just loved that subby, thumpy sound. I love short scales. I used to play a Mustang guitar. That'd be the one, if you've seen the Love in Black and White video. Pretty sure I used it in that video, and all of those recordings. Let's see, Technology's Dead Bird, definitely the Linden Play stuff. That was all Mustang. I was really into the short scales, mostly because Graham from Blur would play them, and I thought that it's a cool sound. Put a Mustang through an AC30 or an AC15 is what I played, and you just get that kind of jangly-ish, broken up British sound. Cool stuff, but that one was a Japanese made. The Japanese Mustangs tend to be the best ones from what I've played, and that's what I used to play. I was talking to a friend about that Mustang, the Love in Black and White one. I really want it. It is probably in a closet collecting dust somewhere. Such a bummer. Hey, it happens. And but I want a Mustang bass. Hey, there it is. And hey, maybe you have one and you want to sell it. If it's made in Japan, hit up your boy. And I was talking to a friend, and they said you should talk about the time that FKA Twigs came over to your house. I don't think I've ever told that story. And FKA Twigs, maybe you've heard of them. We played Quiplash. You ever play Quiplash? It's a game you play on your phone. We always do it in the holidays. It's fun because even if it'll be like Thanksgiving or Christmas, and we'll have a group of friends. We're all with our families, but we're like, hey, we're going to do a game of Quiplash and maybe set up a FaceTime so we can see each other. But you can just do it on the fly, right? And it'll have you fill in the blanks of. It'll ask you questions. You fill in the blanks. Whoever has the funniest one, you vote on it. And that would have been. I lived in Burbank, and it wasn't a very fancy place. This is the place. I'd like to knock on the door one day and just see who's living there now, and just be like, "Here's the people who have been here," because it's a very quaint, small, 2-bedroom. It was nothing fancy, but crazy the people who came through there. That was the one that Elon Musk comes over, knocks on the door, and I'm like, "Hey, Elon. Isn't it funny how quickly Threads didn't happen? All these people are like, oh man, F Elon and this and that, and haha, we're going to take over, and now Threads is the new thing." You lasted a day, didn't you? I posted something on there recently, and it got, 2 likes, or no one saw it, and it's like, sweet. Definitely destroyed. You stuck it to Musk on that one. I think I'm always going to have to some degree, defend that. He was so cool to me. It's so nice. You'd be hanging out over. We were recording. He had set up like a studio for Claire, and it was crazy. There's security detail at all times, and they're like, you'd see out of the corner of your eye, and be like, oh, someone's here. And it's just like, oh no, it's just the security guards walking outside the window, like the perimeter. And they just be like, hey, you want anything? Like the helpers or whatever. You want anything? I'm like, oh, no, I'm good. And they're like, no, like anything. Like, I don't know. You kind of, it's like, oh, does anyone want sushi? It's like, cool, where? And then an hour later, the craziest amount of sushi you can ever imagine. Wild stuff. But you know what? I would imagine that probably gets old at some point. Or does it? Probably not, actually. All these people, Katy Perry just sold her catalog, her publishing for, was it $250 million? I want to say 250 million. It's like, I would be on a boat. I would be on a boat. That's how you know that's how I convince myself that I'm not broken. I feel like to a certain degree, it's like people always try to clown on me online and stuff. It's hilarious to me when they, like on videos like this, they're like, oh, you're talking about how to go viral and this and that. It's like, this video has no views. It's like, I'm not doing the thing. I'm telling you how to. Like, I don't really do that anymore. I legitimately, everything I do now is fun. To the people who, if for some reason you're watching this right now and you're just hate watching, and I know there's people, I've given you all the answers. 34 episodes, there's about 34 hours now of how to do it. I feel like I've been pretty clear. Let me know in the comments if there's more things, or we'll get to listener questions. You guys are asking really good questions because I'm a dad now. Like I make dad music, and I produce music for stuff that I say no to 99% of it, and music videos too. Good Lord, I don't like doing music videos anymore. I just don't. It's like I've made so many of them. And I feel like it's like, yeah, that's kind of my body of work. If I really like the song, I'll do it. And if I really like the artist, I'll do it. But it's just, I did that. And now I want to make yacht rock and country music. And I mean, I guess, I don't know, the my super secret new project that we're 2 weeks away. It's an extension of Titanic Sinclair. If you like my earlier work, I think you'll really dig it. It's cool, but it's modern. I don't know. I'm just doing things I want to do now, and I'm very, very fortunate, and I understand the privilege there. But the harder I work, the luckier I get, and I feel very lucky to be able to spend every day with my family, and I don't have to sit in some horrible office. I've done it before for a long time, and that was the motivating factor for me growing up without a lot of money and having to work those horrible jobs and being like, I need to find a way to enjoy every single day of my life and spend that time, which we have a very finite amount of, with the people that I love, and then you create a tiny little beautiful person that you love more than anything you could ever imagine. And I just want to spend all my time with my family. That's all there is to it. So, when the haters come on and like, oh, you're not getting views and this and that, and blah, blah, blah. It's like, well, I've paid dollars. Have 1 billion people watched your videos? No? Okay. I feel like I kind of have a little bit. Look, yeah, look, Mr. Beast. It's unbelievable. He deserves it. He cracked the code. And in a very sliver of that success, of small, tiny, 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 tiny amount, still, hundreds of millions become suddenly, it's like, wow, it's like 1 billion, and then hundreds of millions of streams and stuff. It's like, it's hard not to be proud of that. And I know that there's no way that you can talk about that without sounding like showboaty and braggadocious. But, it's just, I'm proud of that. And, you can take everything away from me, and a lot of things have been taken away from me, like a Fender Mustang and my favorite boots and all of my jewelry and, the project that I well, let's just say was incredibly influential in making successful, you can take all that away. But you can even take my name off of all of it. Cool. Everyone still knows, And look, it's just life goes on, and I think I'm at a certain point where it's just like, man, people like I get it, like if you don't like me, I'm okay with that, man. Like, I'm just curious, like, what, like, you're still, like, I am incredibly proud of the things that I've made and happy I'm not dealing with whatever they're doing now. Like, I would not want my name on that, Like, hey, you really want to hurt me? People. It's like, say directed by Titanic Sinclair on whatever your new thing you just put out on. That would hurt my feelings. I shouldn't be mean because the guy doing that stuff was always very cool to me. If you're watching, buddy, think about your lens selection more. And just, think about it. Are we cutting that out? Whatever. Hey, look, it is what it is. Let's go to some listener questions here. This comes from Kevin. This question is not so much about you as it is just asking for advice. It's not right for your show. It's no big deal. Hey, we're saying it here, so let's see. Graduated in 2020 with a marketing degree. Oh, you're halfway there already. And worked intern at a handful of indie record labels, distribution groups, and radio stations in college. Graduate, I basically watched all of my post-college job offers disintegrate as, 2020. Yep, ramped up. That's tough. I hear you. That changed everything. To make matters worse, I do not live in a music hub city where it's easy to network. Yeah, I hear you. You can kind of remotely, befriend people online, but it's different than going out and grabbing a drink. I now work in digital marketing. Sorry, I don't want to just read your whole thing. I don't know if I'm like blowing you up here. But they say it sucks. What would your advice be to someone who wants to get back into the music industry who has been out of it for 3 years now? Love the show. Thank you for working on the projects that you do. Thank you, Kevin. Thank you for the question. Great question. What would your advice be to someone who wants to get back into the music industry but has been out of it for 3 years now? Well, it depends on what you want your involvement to be. I would say if you have a degree in marketing, that is huge. Some of the smarter people I know in the biz started out with just that. I just watched, Matt Bennett actually just turned me onto this awesome documentary that I watched last night, Jobriath AD. Full documentary is on YouTube. Watch that. That's my advice, Kevin. And you can thank Matt Bennett for that because it blew my mind. Really, a lot of the pitfalls in that. If you've heard of Jobriath, I hadn't. Again, I can't believe I hadn't, but everyone should watch that. It was relatable to me because I was around a lot of figures similar to what he was around. I think it's a masterclass in what not to do, and I think it's better in any business. I'm no expert, but had some success in music, and I think it's more about. I always say I ran out of mistakes to make before having any sort of a small success, and I think the marketing degree is probably look that's 1,000 times more helpful. I would say than even a management degree. Sorry, manager friends, and in a million times more helpful than like engineering or music production, songwriting, any of that stuff. Because look, it was kind of a challenge, for me. It was like, can I take some, as a producer, it was like, a lot of the stuff I've done has just been strictly marketing. We didn't have great songs. We didn't have like a great singer. Sorry. It is what it is. You work with great singers who you don't have to auto-tune and comp like crazy, and you're like, oh, that's how it's supposed to be, which is nuts because my entire life, myself included, producing my own stuff, it's just like going through comps and, you got fine-tune stuff and edit and this and that. Then you work with someone like Caleb Lee Hutchinson. What is it, next week? Silverado comes out. First song from Southern Galactic new album, Booyah, baby. But back to your question, Kevin. Any other advice for getting back into the music industry? If you're able to, take a trip to LA, New York, or Nashville, it's kind of it. I would even say these days, Nashville, LA is kind of more, things are happening ish. I know those are fighting words, New York, but ew. Not a lot's been happening in the music realm, at least in the stuff that I partake in. And I know getting your foot in the door for kind of some of that stuff is tough. But it can be just as simple as, if there's people, maybe find a project that you like and see who's on the team. And I know a handful of people now who started off as interns at the labels, and maybe you're not in a position now where you're like able to intern, but man, I've seen people climb the ranks. And I wouldn't even necessarily say like major labels or anything like that. You said you worked with, indies and stuff, but I would say you'd be surprised at how much help a lot of these management teams need. So maybe find like artists that you're into and see who manages them, and just start the conversation. Hey, I'm going to be in town. Just wondering if I can buy you a coffee or buy you dinner, and ask some questions. And who knows, maybe that could lead to something. Use your marketing chops. On yourself. How could you make yourself as presentable as possible to get yourself, your foot in the door? Because this business, it's all, my old manager used to always say, we don't work on Wall Street, we work on Capitol Hill. Probably the best advice I ever got in the music business. So think about that. So there you go. Couple of questions here from Austin. Let's rapid fire these. Cherry pick or disregard? Does Spotify playlist exist of the entire catalog of songs that you've been involved with, the Titanic opus, as it were? Are you at liberty to share this playlist? You know what? I've never made that playlist. Maybe someone can do that. I forget. I have it somewhere on my ASCAP. You have to register all your songs. I honestly, it's a lot. It's, I don't know, 150 songs, probably. And I think a lot of them still haven't, a lot of them aren't even released, so it's hard to say. But for the released ones, yeah, I'm sure someone could put that together. What's your favorite novel? I recently finished The Death of Bunny Munro by Nick Cave. It's not my favorite novel. Oh, that's a tough one. For the longest time, it was Cat's Cradle by Vonnegut, Slaughterhouse-Five as well. Favorite novel? That's a really, really hard one for me. Um, I think people would be surprised with a lot of my choices because I kind of am into boring stuff. But yeah, it probably Cat's Cradle. I think it's so funny and fun. Um, and yeah, I think it's great. But that's like a favorite album. I think it just depends on like what time of my life it is. Do you think the outro of Smells Like Teen Spirit originally went a good night all? A denial, a good night all. I think it's pretty clearly a denial. And that definitely, thinking about Cobain's lyrics, a denial seems to work. But I don't know, maybe I have his book that journals, which I've always kind of felt weird about. If I passed away and someone released all my private journals, I don't know if I'd be cool with that. But I get it. Hey, I bought it. No, I got it for Christmas. It was a gift from someone. What's your take on AI programs which generate images and videos such as Midjourney, Stable Diffusion, Runway's Gen 2, Pika Labs? I use them every day, Stable Diffusion and Runway. The text to video Gen 2 is amazing. A lot of the newer stuff for other artists I'm working on involves some of that. It's all up to the idea. Technically, yes, everyone can do it. But it's about the idea. So I think a lot of the AI stuff people are freaked out about, it's overblown because it's like, well, if the idea isn't good to begin with, it doesn't matter, right? But yeah, Stable Diffusion and Runway I'm using primarily. What I'm doing is I'm building environments and using Unreal Engine, at least for video to video. And so my input has a lot of information. So instead of just telling it text, I'm giving it fluid movement. I'm waiting for video to video Gen 2 to come out, and that's when your boy's going to dominate with that stuff. But it's just not there yet. And as you know, Gen 2 is only a couple seconds at a time. And for me, I need to be able to run a couple minutes. But yeah, what's cool about Runway is they listen to their users because they've implemented. I'm sure I'm not the only person, but I've talked to their development team, and they've implemented some of the stuff that I was begging them to. So pretty cool. We'll see what happens with that. This is from Dan, big fan of your music and writing. Thank you, Dan. Curious if you ever heard blatant influence someone has taken from your songs you wrote. It's always speculative. Who knows? I'm very open about, like, I just take a ton of things that I like and kind of, for me, the melody's always from the gut. And that's kind of, I think, been my secret weapon. Hopefully I have that thing that like a Brian Wilson or Paul McCartney have, nowhere near their level, but, Harry Nilsson, they just have that gift of melody, and Randy Newman has it. And I'm not mathematic about that kind of thing. I'm very I go with my gut with melody. And so yeah, I don't know. I know there's been a couple big songs. I'll have to make a list of those where it's like, ooh, that definitely sounds like something I did. But I always have to check myself and make sure the ego stays deflated, and it's like, well, how original was mine, really, right? Hello, my son has entered the room. Hi, you want to come say hello? You see me on the monitor, huh? Oh, hey, buddy. Are you telling me to go play outside? I see he has his shoes on. That means it's time to go play outside. Okay, let's take one more listener question here. This comes from Andrew. It's very intriguing that Air, the French band, is currently your number 3 favorite. Has been for, I guess 20 years. After watching Sofia Coppola's directional, I think they meant directorial, debut, The Virgin Suicides, I became obsessed and haunted with both the film and musical score by Air for about a decade. Yeah, that's one of the things that got me into them too. As both, she has a new book out, which is great. We got a copy of it, which is super cool, and has a lot of like behind the scenes photos and stuff. You should check it out. What was that called again? That book, the Sofia Coppola one. Archive. Check that out if you're a fan. As both a video and music director, what's your take on that whole project, and why don't we have anything like that being produced anymore? Lightning in a bottle. I would say, that movie, just everything about it, I love. It's fantastic. And then, you got Air doing the score for it, and come on, it's going to be amazing. I just think it was time and place, and the new stuff that I'm doing definitely has an Air influence. Look, I was just talking about getting a Mustang bass. I want that thumpy sound, and it's one of those elements that you hear and can't get away from, and it's like, I think it's time that I do that. And getting a lot more into kind of the quirky stuff. When I first started producing, I was obsessed. So. But I'm getting more into making the quirkier Air influence stuff. So, okay, that's going to do it for this week. Thank you so much for watching. Pardon me. You can get your merchandise at titanicsinclair.bandcamp.com. Click the merch button. Please, if you could, subscribe to this on Spotify and stream Titanic Sinclair music on Spotify. That helps your main man out so much. Hey, why not tell a friend? I think we're gonna hit 3 million streams on Scorpio coming up relatively quickly here. So maybe send a song on Spotify to a friend. That helps tremendously. You wouldn't believe it. And thank you everyone for the questions. We'll talk to you next week. We are getting close to Halloween, spooky season, going to be a fun time. And maybe we'll do like a spooky Halloween theme. I can get like an orange backdrop, huh? That'd be fun, right? Could do it digitally, but your boy likes going analog. All right. Thank you again for watching. Love you very much. And we will see you next week. See ya.